We've got Eric in East Stroudsburg.
Hi.
Hi.
I was recently in a radio debate with a evangelical preacher, ex-pastor, and he brought up the argument, which is basically a God of the gaps argument, in my opinion. Logic or inductive reasoning is a Christian concept, and I was wondering how you guys would go about taking that out. I went out and said it's a God of the gaps argument. Said you're basically saying logic exists, therefore God exists.
Oh, the idea that God invented logic?
Yeah, that you can only have logic with God.
Oh, yeah. I'd call that a stealing credit sort of thing.
I'm confused, though, because was this some formation of the transcendental argument for the existence of God, or was this specifically having to do with inductive reasoning?
This specifically had to do with inductive reasoning, which the preacher was using.
Okay, I'd have to see the argument or hear it, but it's ridiculous. I mean, unless your argument is God gave us a brain, brains are required for inductive reasoning, therefore God is required for inductive reasoning. That's a valid argument. It's just not sound because they haven't demonstrated the first premise, which is God gave us a brain. If they're arguing instead that inductive reasoning is not possible unless there is this transcendent God being who made it possible, then it's a different version of the transcendental argument for the existence of God, which addresses the three logical absolutes.
Yeah, that's the argument he was using.
The
and then
three
when
logical
he asked me where
absolutes?
logic came from,
Yeah.
I said, I don't know, and he started to use that against me.
Yeah.
Well, then he's trying to shift the burden of proof to you. He has to prove that A, there is a God, and B, that God did this thing, right?
Yeah, I had a lengthy debate with Matt Slick on this show about TAG, the transcendental argument, and we're not going to do it all again today. Although I do notice that the other caller that is in the queue wants to talk about exactly the same thing. I think so. Maybe we are going to talk about it today.
My basic thing was I then went on to list all these other ridiculous possibilities, like Allah, invisible pink unicorn, flying spaghetti monster, and said I could assert they're the reason for inductive reasoning.
Yeah, they're equally
have to prove
valid.
your reason is the right one.
Well, the typical arguments, and I'll have to give him the benefit of the doubt here. The typical argument is that there must be some being, and so he would probably agree with all your premises, and then say now it is our objective to figure out which of those beings it actually is, or which group of beings are actually responsible for it. So I think your approach would end up giving away the farm, because we don't need to concede that much. They need to make their case that the nature of logic, or that the existence of logic, is contingent upon some transcendent being, and I can defend that it's not, and have.
Well, I think what I actually said was, if we concede that something created this, we still don't know what it is, but we can't even concede that.
Yes, and that's a perfect point to make. That at the end of the day, for example, with Matt Slick's formulation of TAG on his website, at the end of the day, even if I were to concede all of his points, all it gets to is at some point there must have been a mind that is ultimately responsible for the nature of logic. It tells us nothing at all about the nature of that mind, whether it still exists, or whether it's tied to Jesus, Allah, the bunny rabbits. It reminds me in a few ways of the various cosmological arguments, like Kalam, which is going to eventually posit that there had to be something at the beginning. And even though the arguments are flawed, both Tag and Kalam are flawed, and we can point those out. Even if they were true, they do not justify, they do not support what the individual presenting the argument believes, because it's possible that even if it were logically true that there had to be a first cause that had to necessarily be something godlike, that doesn't mean it still has to exist. It could have burnt itself out in the process of creating these universes. So they then have to come up with a whole new argument that demonstrates what they're saying. And the funny thing, the thing somebody suggested I do, and I've done it since, is ask these people who are presenting the transcendental argument for the existence of God, the Kalam cosmology, anything like that. Is this why you believe? Was this the thing that convinced you? Or, in fact, do you believe for other reasons, and now you are positing these arguments to kind of
The smoke screen.
reinforce your own
Yeah.
delusion and attempt to convince others who would not be convinced by the gullible, asinine crap that convinced you in the first place. You can phrase it slightly different.
Yeah,
but-
you could might be more diplomatic, but
I probably would phrase it that way if it wasn't like a public debate that I was having there.
Yeah,
But
I mean, granted, I've got a couple potential public debates coming up in the fall semester. You can believe that I will certainly be more diplomatic. I'm having fun on the show. I'm not mad. I'll get frustrated, but it's about entertainment. Because if I sat here and did the dry crap that goes on at debates, none of you guys would be watching. That's for sure.
yeah, it was kind of disappointing because
And I wouldn't be doing it.
because I was invited by the preacher onto his radio show.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I wouldn't be doing this because it wouldn't be any fun. I like to actually have fun when I do.
well, it sounds like you've done a lot of homework for that. I mean, these debates, they can be very challenging because there's a lot of rhetorical tricks that are used, and if you're arguing honestly, often it's easy to get tripped up by those, so there's quite a bit of showmanship that goes on in these sorts of things, and it's very easy to come out looking like you're an idiot, or you get wrapped around some niggly thing, and the preacher or whatever looks good because they spewed so much BS that you haven't had a chance to respond to. So it's a kind of a dangerous thing to be doing. So you got to be well prepared.
I admit he got me a couple of times, but he also brought up the moral argument. So I got him to say on air that it was perfect to rip pregnant women's stomachs open with swords because Hosea said so.
Great.
Okay, well, good for you. I mean, that's where the logic goes with this thing, with the Bible. I guess it's Deuteronomy or Numbers.
It was Hosea.
Hosea?
I forget which one is Hosea, but it talks about ripping pregnant women's stomachs open with swords.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Yeah.
So I got him some places too, but he was probably the better public speaker, so there was some advantage for him.
Yeah, and
But
the
anyway,
keep
important
up
thing
the
to
good work.
remember, the important thing to remember is that this idea of who won or lost a debate, that may matter in collegiate debates that are judged and scored and graded and things like that. I'll accept I'll accept almost any debate offer out there, and have accepted a couple, although we haven't done them yet. And I'll go into them knowing that I'm the underdog. I'm probably not going to convince people in the audience, just like I come on this show every week. I don't think Hal is going to be convinced because of anything I said, but somebody else might benefit from it. And at some time in the future, Hal might benefit from it. And in any case, I benefit from it now.
What I'm finding is that maybe not the people who are listening to it completely are like outside of my friends are finding any difference in their opinions, but some of my friends are now coming up and asking me questions that they would have never asked before.
Well, good.
So,
And I think
but anyway.
the public benefits by having these sorts of things where these issues of ultimate concern are talked about, and that's part of the reason why we do the show. Is these are important topics, and our viewpoint, I think, deserves to be heard. Anyway, so good for you. Good for you.
So thanks
Anyway,
a lot.
I'd just
Thanks a
like
lot
to
for
thank
calling.
you for your time today, and you did give me some extra points to think about when going about that topic from here on out.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Eric.
All right.
Have a good day. One of the things, this idea, or we get, I've been asked a number of times, why do you care? Why can't you just let people have their? People can have their beliefs. I'm not trying. I care because I care about whether or not something's true, and because I care about the world that I live in, et cetera. I know there are plenty of atheists and agnostics and secularists out there who have absolutely no interest in discussing these or having debates or public debates because they want to go out and enjoy their life, and good for them.
Nothing wrong with that.
I got no objection. This is something that I enjoy doing, and I actually give a damn, so I'm going to do it. Well, yeah, but aren't you? Doesn't this mean that you I don't know, secretly believe or something? Because why would you spend so much time talking about something that you don't believe in or whatever? And the answer is the reason I talk about it so much is because it's a real problem. people really believe things and then really take actions based on those beliefs, and those actions really affect all of us. I'm baffled at why more people don't seem to care. I'm baffled at when somebody asks me, I just can't understand why an atheist would do that. I don't know how to answer you, because to me, the only reason to not is because you don't give a damn, which is entirely your right. I would encourage, I'd like to see more people caring, but if you don't, you don't.